This is the Rodney Bull Show, bringing you truth about money they never taught you. Now, here's your host, the man himself, Rodney Bull.
G'day, legends. What's cracking, money stackers? Welcome back to the Rodney Bull Show. Today's guest believes money is about a lot more than numbers. It's about stress, confidence, emotions, and how people experience everyday life. Linda Grizely is a certified financial planner, financial wellness speaker, and creator of the Me Money method, a mindset-first approach that helps people move away from guilt and overwhelm and towards clarity and confidence with money. And what I really like about Linda's approach is this. She understands that financial stress quietly impacts people's decisions, relationships, confidence, and overall well-being. Instead of throwing jargon at people, she focuses on helping them feel capable and more in control of their financial lives. So if you've ever felt overwhelmed by money, which most of us have, I'm pretty sure at times, I know I have, behind financially, I've been there too, or frustrated that traditional money advice just doesn't connect with real life, which as far as I'm concerned, I don't think most of us get any money advice in real life, really. So that conversation is going to resonate with a lot of people today, I reckon. So let's get into it, folks? Linda Grizely, welcome to the show, mate.
Thanks so much for having me, Rodney.
It's a real pleasure to have you on here, mate. I've been really looking forward to having this chat with you today. Been looking into a bit of your stuff, mate, that you've been doing, and you're doing a fabulous job in what you're doing, bringing financial education to the marketplace and to the people. So, and especially to women, which I believe is your main target audience.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I speak to mainly women who feel like they're behind or they should know more by now. And the funny thing is that I think it resonates with a lot of men too, which I wasn't necessarily expecting. So I would say about half of my clients are men and half are women. But I find that interesting because I thought that, you know, there was this separation between men and women, that men had it all figured out. I don't know. I didn't really think that, but I thought more of
No,
them
we
did.
don't. I can guarantee you we don't. Some of us bullshit our way through life trying to make everyone believe we do, but we don't.
Maybe that's it. Maybe you guys are just better BSers. I don't know.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. Nah, mate. Linda, a lot of people listening right now are working hard, paying bills, mate, you know, trying to do the right thing financially, and things are tough. I believe all around the world through my research at the moment. I know here in Australia, cost of living crisis, and I believe it's much the same over there for yous and probably most of the western part of the world. Like, people are doing it tough, mate. Yet they feel stressed and behind and overwhelmed with money, you know, and I believe that's probably because through my learnings, you know, I'm 50 and I've been on a real journey the last 6 years or so, digging into this really deeply, trying to understand what money is, you know, and financial system and how it all works. And it's one hell of a rabbit hole, I tell you. And they teach, no, they don't teach anything to us in school about it at all. What do you think? Why do you think money feels so emotionally heavy for so many people, mate? And when they're doing everything right?
Well, first of all, money is so much emotion. I mean, even just the word money creates emotion in people and a feeling, and it can vary from day to day and from circumstance to circumstance. So, the idea that I say money to you today, you might be like, yeah, money, you know, let's go make more money. Or another day, you might be like, oh, yeah, money. Oh, you know, heavy stuff. Either way, that's emotion, right? So there's always emotion tied to it. And I think that the reason that it feels emotionally heavy a lot of times is because there's all these things coming at us that tell us what we should do. We should be doing this. We should be doing that. On all kinds of voices, right? It's our parents, it's our peers, it's social media, it's all kinds of stuff coming at us. And then when we don't do all those things, that's when we start to feel like we're behind. We feel ashamed. We feel guilty, like, oh, I didn't do that. And so it adds all this negativity to it because we feel like we're failing because we're not doing all the things that we should be doing.
Yeah, so true. And you did right. As far as emotion goes, you know, we're emotional beings. A lot of us don't like to admit to that or face up to or especially deal with our emotions, I believe, you know. I've been there and struggled with it at times throughout my life, that's for sure. And especially around money. I just recently listened to a really good audio book by Ken Honda. I don't know if you have heard of him, but it's a book called Happy Money. And if you haven't heard of it or listened to it, I'd suggest to yourself and anybody else to go and have a good listen to it. It has certainly started to shift my perception on how we think about it and the emotional side of it. You know, as like it's an energy. Money is energy, and it's a form of energy, and it comes about from us expending our energy into the world, and then it comes back to us in a money format, and then how we process that, I guess, how we have money come to us and how we have money leaving us. Yeah, it was a really interesting concept the way that he talks about it. If you have good positive energy about it, or negative energy about it, it affects you greatly as the way that it comes to you and leaves you, and how it affects you overall.
Yeah, yeah. I haven't read it, but I understand the basis of what he's talking about, and I would, because I talk about that some too. So I'm looking forward to actually checking it out, reading it, listening to it, whichever.
Yeah, yeah, no, it was really cool. I really enjoyed it myself. Really, really good. Um, so on that conversation, you know, money is emotional and it's not just maths. You talk a lot about money not just being maths. How much do emotions actually influence the way people spend their lives, save and make financial decisions? And what emotions drive the most damaging decisions, do you think?
Well, part of the emotional part is what I call the human variable. I have a keynote that I do. I speak to organizations and associations about personal finance, and it's called the human variable, and it's about financial wellness and how it's so important that we take into account our human variable when we look at all these things that we should be doing, right? So general financial advice is built on spreadsheets, apps are just numbers, and software. It's all numbers. There's no emotion added to it.
Yeah,
But when you look at yourself, you have two things that create your own unique money DNA, I call it. One is your history with money, all the things that you saw, you heard, you experienced, what your circumstances were throughout your life. And the other one is your money personality, how you're naturally wired to interact with money.
yeah,
So when you add all of that together, like you get your own personal unique DNA, that's your money DNA, that's completely different than anyone else's. And that's the human variable. So when we're all being told to do the same exact thing, like this is what you should do, this is how you should do it, and it's all about numbers and it's not taking into account the person at all, of course we all feel behind. Of course we're all feeling like we're failing because we can't all do the same exact thing. We are not the same people.
yeah. So true, mate. So true. We are very unique individual beings, and you know, for me myself, my journey in life up to this point, it's taken me a while. Maybe I'm a slow learner. I think I'm definitely a slow learner. But anyway, um, trying to become to understand and know who you are and how you actually work and relate in the world, and especially around something as big as money, because it touches all facets of our lives, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you think about, we say it touches all facets of our lives. We are we are dealing with money coming and going 24/7, like our entire day. So even when we're sleeping, we're powering devices, we're heating or cooling our homes. There's always something that's coming or going with money, right? Either we're at work earning it, or we are working on investing it, or it's even just sitting in an account and it's getting invested and earning money. That's happening all the time. Or we're spending it. Like it's always there. It never goes away. And it's kind of like breathing. Like you forget that it's there and that it's happening, but it's
Yeah.
happening all the time.
Yeah, it is, and that's why a good thing I took from that book, that Happy Money book, in regards to it being energy. It really is. It's energy. Our whole world is energy. We are energy. It's all flowing at all times, you know, and I think you can get stuck at times, and if you get stuck in a mindset about money itself, it can really stop you standing still in progressing and building your financial wealth over time. So what you're teaching around the money mindset is so important, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. The stories you're telling yourself about how much you can earn or how much you deserve to have, all of that is very, very true.
Yeah, yeah, and it comes from I believe our parents and grandparents and our so-called schooling education system. Yeah, it's probably for me. It's probably more to the point of what we haven't been taught, even more to the point than what we have been taught. I've found in my time.
Yeah, it strikes me that I mean, I don't even know how many thousands of conversations with money people and from all over the world. And everybody says that they weren't taught about money. And it's so odd to me that we aren't, because it is part of such an important component of our lives. Like, we're trading something for other things. And long before money itself in the form we know existed, there was bartering and trading,
Yeah.
and the power of that is how everyone has always survived. So the fact that it's missing from our education throughout the world is just amazing to me.
Yes, it's certainly taken me down a rabbit hole once I really started digging into it and asked that bigger question as to why. Why are we not taught about it when it is such an integral part of of our lives and how we function in this world? So it's a good question there to ask yourself, people, and go and start digging into it. It's quite
Yeah.
interesting what you might find. Uh, why do you reckon traditional budgets fail so badly, Linda? Traditional budgeting advice often makes people feel restricted or guilty, I believe, and I've struggled myself personally with budgets throughout my life. Put one together, go good for a little while, get off track, and then start realizing that you're off track, and then get back into it again and put another budget back together again. And why do you think so many people budgeting systems really fail for them? And what actually works better?
This goes back to, I talked about like the your human variable, right? Your money history and your money personality and all that thing that makes you uniquely you with money. So in my practice, I identify 5 different money personalities. And at one end is a security seeker who likes to have everything accounted for. And at the other far end is a risk taker who likes to just do things for the experience. And then we have, as we go inward, a saver and a spender, and then in the middle, an avoider, somebody who doesn't like to pay attention to money.
Okay,
And
so this is like money personalities that
yeah,
heard you talk about.
yeah, and there's no wrong money personality. It's just what makes you uniquely you. This is that part of how you naturally interact with money, part of that human variable I talk about. And the idea is that when you put together a really strict budget and you have, let's say, a spreadsheet that has everything, like each thing itemized, and you have, this is what I spend on housing, food, clothing, and really itemizes everything out. A person who is a security seeker will love that, and they will have probably a very good success at following that. But a person who's on the other end, either uh, a risk taker, a spender, or even an avoider, is going to have a really hard time following that, because that is not how they naturally work, right?
Yep,
So if you think of
makes
like,
sense.
you think of like somebody who's like an engineer who likes to like have all these little pieces and figure out how they work together, they probably would like a more strict budget, maybe. But
Yep.
also you have people who are like artists who like to just be free flowing and creative, and they're probably not going to like that. So if you think about the money personality in those senses, so when we all use that same advice, like, hey, you need to do a budget, you need to do a strict budget, you can see how that might work for somebody and it might not work for somebody else. And then if you do that and you aren't able to make it work and you just can't stick yourself in that box to do that, then you feel like you failed. So we have all these people, like, only, I would say, out of the 5 money personalities, 3 of them are going to fail at a strict budget. And not because they're doing anything wrong, just because it's not made for them, because it doesn't fit how they interact with money to begin with. So for them, I would have a different strategy. I wouldn't do a budget where we name everything because it's not going to work for them.
Yeah. No, it makes a lot of sense, mate. Makes a lot of sense. So I guess what you're saying there is that you really, throughout with your work, working with peoples and individuals, that you try and dig into that side of it first and
Yeah,
foremost, trying to find out what their money personality is and get help them to understand what their money personality is as well, so that they can actually reflect upon themselves and understand how they like to live their lives, what makes them happy and brings them joy, and to think obviously we've got a plan for our future, but really digging into that money personality side of it, you find that is one of the biggest parts of what you do with people.
it is. Yeah, because it helps them understand that what they've been doing isn't wrong. Like they might be trying, and they feel like they're failing. But when I explain to them what their money personality is, or I don't explore, they uncover, and we uncover together their money personality. I have a quiz on my website you can take too, but like they start to understand, and like the aha button goes off, and they're like, oh my gosh, I never thought about it this way. No wonder, okay, so what do I do? How do I make it work for me?
Yeah,
Um, One of my easiest strategies is the me money method. You mentioned that in the beginning, and that works for virtually any money personality because it is, and I say virtually because I'm sure there are some people who are going to be like, oh, that doesn't work for me, but most people it does,
yeah,
because it's just budgeting for your discretionary income, only the things that you spend on yourself. So the money that's for me, my money, my me money, that's what I spend on anything I spend on myself. And I budget only that amount. I don't worry about all the other stuff because all the other stuff is responsibilities. And so when I start focusing on just that part that is the discretionary part, like the things that I could live without if I had to, then I start making better choices, or I start allowing myself to spend on myself because some people feel guilty when they do. And so that allows them to spend without the guilt.
yeah,
If you spend a lot, then it gives you some boundaries so that you start asking yourself questions every time you spend money so that you can spend with more intention and make better choices.
yeah, for sure, for sure. I've found throughout my life, the differences along them lines, especially spending on yourself, things that you like to buy for yourself and find joy from buying them things and using them things. But even going and just doing everyday spending around town or whatever, I find personally myself using cash, which hardly anybody does anymore. Um, I find it makes you think a lot more deeply about what you're spending in the moment and how you're spending it, as opposed to how most of us spend these days using a card. And honestly, a lot of people don't even have a card to swipe anymore that's in their phone, and they just use their phone to tap and go. For whatever
Yeah.
reason, it doesn't seem to really compute in our minds when you spend money that way, I find. So maybe that's a reason why people seem to really struggle with their spending at times in regards to them two differences.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's when you have it in your hand, when you're spending cash and it's tangible, you definitely are thinking more because also you're going to run out of cash, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to
You
run
watch
out.
it,
Well,
you
you
watch
will. You
them
might
notes
run out.
get less and less in your wallet as you're going around town
Yeah.
throughout the day spending it, and you're like, do I really want this thing? Do I
Right.
really need
Right.
it?
And with your cards, I mean, yes, you will eventually run out, but it's gonna take longer to run out than out of the cash that's in your pocket, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so when we do the me money method and we have people put money aside for themselves, I actually have them. They can do cash if they want, but I actually have them open a separate account so that there's only that much money in that account, and they can that way they can
Yeah.
save too, and they
Okay.
can build up money to buy something later.
Yeah. That's really clever. Really clever, mate. Really, really like that. I really do. Um, why do you reckon people feel so behind at the moment? Many smart, hard-working people, capable, still feeling financially behind. Even when they're outside of them, they seem to be doing okay. Um, what do you reckon quietly destroys financial confidence in their lives?
again, all those things that people are telling them they should do and all the things they know they should be doing that they're not doing. Because in real life, we all know the things we should be doing, but actually applying it and making it work is the harder part, right? And I think one of the biggest things there is like just the basic idea that you live within your means, because we all get stuck in this lifestyle creep, right? We
Yeah.
start when we're starting out, we're really like tight with money. Like everything that we have is going to all of our responsibilities, and we don't have much money left over to spend on ourselves. So as we start to earn more money, our lifestyle creeps up because we start to be like, okay, I have a little bit more breathing room. I can spend a little more on myself. I can get a little bit bigger place to live or a better car or whatever. And so you just keep creeping up, but we forget to also creep up the amount that we're saving. So
Yep.
at some point, we get to the point where, like, oh my gosh, I've been living this whole time and I've been living paycheck to paycheck and I haven't saved anything or very little. And now I'm behind and now I need to figure out how to catch up. But you're already stuck in that lifestyle that you've built. And it's harder to go backwards. It's harder to say, like, okay, maybe I don't need the fancy car. Maybe I don't need the bigger house. Like, how do I go backwards from what I'm used to? That's hard to do.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that probably partially answers the next question that I was going to roll into. Yeah. So I'd say you talk about financial wellness and what does that actually mean beyond just budgets and bank balances? What does healthy money behavior actually look like for us as individuals?
I think that financial wellness and healthy money behavior look like understanding where your money is coming and going
Yeah.
and feeling good about decisions that you make. So to me, financial wellness doesn't necessarily mean like, hey, I've got all this money and I could retire tomorrow if I wanted to. That's not financial wellness. Financial wellness is feeling confident in you understand your money and you can make confident good decisions based on that. So if you think of cash flow is what's coming in and what's going out, right?
Yep.
And a lot of
So important.
people,
So important.
yeah, a lot of people are just like, if nothing's broken, if I'm not bouncing a check or whatever you call it these days, overdrawing my account, then I'm okay, right? But here's the thing: your cash flow is like the dashboard of your car, right? The
Sure.
dashboard's going to tell me everything I need to know. I don't need to know how the entire car works. Like somebody else, if my entire car breaks down, I'm going to take it to somebody else. But for me to get by day to day, I just need to know how much gas I have, if my car is going to overheat, and how fast I'm going, right? Because I don't want to run out of gas and I don't want to overheat my car and I don't want to get pulled over, right? I don't want those things to happen.
Yep.
So as long as I know that, I can get through safely. But if I'm not paying any attention, guess what? I might run out of gas, my car might overheat, or I might get pulled over for speeding, right? So that's what your cash flow is. It's telling you all the things that you need to know. And if
Yeah.
you aren't watching it and understanding it, then something bigger is going to happen with your engine or with
Yeah.
whatever because you weren't paying attention.
Yeah, for sure. I think for a lot of people today, and especially, what's going on in the world now in this cost of living crisis that we're going on, like everything just going up and up. Inflation's just eating people alive. That understanding that cash flow aspect, and I like that terminology you used as far as it being a dashboard in your car. It's a really good way to have to look at it and think about it. I've spent a lot of years listening to and learning from Robert Kiyosaki, and he talks about cash flow all the time. When you come to understand just how important it is to really grasp what's going on with your money, that's a really big one, a really really big one, to know what's
Yeah,
coming in and what's going out, for sure.
absolutely.
Because yeah, if you're not paying attention, the car can and will break down because there tends to be most times more going out than what's coming in. You find
That's
working with people, they share with you like financial stress at work in their lives, mate. You also talk about financial stress impacts how it impacts people at work. How does money stress show up in people's focus, performance, and decision making? And do employers underestimate how this affects their people?
They do. I think the biggest thing is, I wish I remembered the statistics right now, but you can look it up. But it's like 56% of people, for some reason, that number is standing out to me, uh, have a financial, admit that financial stress affects them at work. And the idea behind it is that like money stress doesn't stay at home. When you have personal financial stress, like you're bringing it to work. So uh I have a couple of stories that I tell. I'll just tell briefly one of them.
Yeah,
I
please
worked in
share.
a I worked in a financial services firm, and I was a supervisor, and I was having a goal setting conversation with a newer employee. And I was super excited about it because I thought like she's got so much potential. Like she's new to the industry. She's in an entry level role. And I really wanted to find out like what she was interested in learning more about, like where she thought she might go if she was to look at a career. And so I was super excited about the conversation, but I always start every conversation I have, whether it be with clients or with employees or whatever, with what's top of mind. And granted, she hadn't even been there a year yet. But when I asked her what was top of mind, she said, when are raises? And then some other words after that. And then because this company needs to pay a living wage. And I just stopped and I was like, wait a minute, what conversation are we having right now? Because I'm thinking about it and like, I know, like, you would think that this is a compensation conversation. Like,
Yeah,
is she getting paid enough? But I know from where I'm sitting that she's that we're paying over market value for her, right? So she's paying more than that job generally pays and more than our industry generally pays for an entry level position. And so I'm thinking about it and I'm thinking about her circumstances and knowing what I know about her from having worked with her. And I was just like, wow, she's not living within her means and she's never going to. More money isn't going to solve this. I mean, obviously, I didn't tell her this right there in that meeting. I was answering her questions, but
yeah,
I was thinking all this stuff was going on in my head. And I'm like, if if that's the first thing that's top of her mind when she comes in to sit down for a goal setting conversation, that means that that stress is with her all the time,
yeah.
right? She's bringing it to work and it's affecting her attitude and how she interacts with people probably. And once I understood, I could see it, I could recognize it. And I was thinking, okay, first of all, we are in a financial services firm. So she has access to financial education. People are talking about money constantly. Like anything she wanted to know about how to improve her finances was available to her. But yet it wasn't clicking for her. And so if that's happening in a company that is a financial services company, what is happening everywhere else?
Yeah,
Right?
so true.
So that's one of my stories that I tell about how financial stress walks into work because I think it's pretty indicative of just the idea that we don't realize that these are the things that our employees are thinking about.
Yeah, yeah, and it's generally front of mind for most people, I believe, in their day-to-day goings on, and can see how it affects people at work. I see it. I work in the coal mining industry. I'm a machinery operator, a big machinery operator in open cut coal mines, and we earn good money and just see so many people living with the stress of money every day, um and they're making, compared to most people in a town job, they're making double the money that most people are making in an average town job, and a lot of them are just living paycheck to paycheck still, got nothing to show for it. I've seen both sides of the fence, and how it affects people too. I've seen people that I've worked with in my time. I've been in the game quite a number of years, and seen people who've been in the industry 30 years, and they own 15 houses. And I've seen other people in the industry, been in the industry the same amount of time, 30 years, and they got nothing. They got
Yeah.
nothing, and you just think, and I guess that's where that money personality thing comes into it, and people have never learnt that about themselves, I guess. And but seeing that stress. You see people at work all the time, you know, earning as good a money as we make, and they got that same sort of mindset about that person you were just talking about. Um, that they think they need more money or they deserve more money. Now, ultimately, we get compensated for how much value we bring to the marketplace more than anything in any job that we're ever in. And like you said, that young girl there, she probably come to work at a financial services business because she thought it would pay really well being in the financial services industry. But like you said, she was living beyond her means. So, and she was in a place where she could have got really, really well educated and got to understand where her own mindset was at around money, and could have done really well if she could just shift that mindset. Hopefully you helped her shift that in some way in your time working together.
Yeah. Yeah. In some ways, yes. There's only so much you can do sometimes, but yeah.
Yeah, this is true. We can share that, knowledge is everything, but unless you put it into action, it's not really worth anything, is it? No amount of knowledge. You can learn everything in the world, but if you don't put it into action, it's not going to do anything for you by any
Yeah.
means. I'm
Yeah.
sure. Can we dig into your the me money method that you've developed, Linda? I'm quite curious to understand and hear you explain it.
Yeah, so I gave you little bits and pieces of it already, but it's basically taking the amount that you spend on any discretionary items on yourself and budgeting just for that. I hate to use the word budgeting, but say bucketing just for that, right? So figuring out when you go through like your cash flow, when you figure out what you're spending money on, a lot of times there's things that are items that are just for you only. So like for instance, for me, it's like my fingernails. I get my nails done. Um, so for me, that's something that I spend money on, and that's what I'm choosing to spend money on. But when I choose to spend my money on that, I'm realizing that I might be saying no to something else that I want to do, right?
Yeah,
Because I'm
yeah.
choosing to do that. So for me, I'm putting value on that over something else. Um, the me money method actually came about because I put my husband on a budget. So
Bet you didn't like that.
actually he was okay with it because so here's the thing. So I handle the finances in the family because I'm the money person. And we got married, so second marriage for both of us, so married later in life. So we already had kind of like our lifestyles established and everything. And now that we live under the same roof and we have the same lifestyle, um, I just realized that he didn't understand or have an idea of how much money he was actually spending.
Yeah.
So I put him on a budget just to help him to get more aware of how much money he was spending. That was the whole reason behind it. It wasn't to be controlling or to restrict him because I already knew how much money he was spending. So I knew the amount that I was giving him would be okay. And so I just wanted him to understand like what he's actually spending. So I did this and he said, "Well, are you going to give yourself the same budget?" And so I said, "Sure, I'll give myself the same budget." So we get the same amount every paycheck, goes into a separate account for each one of us. And then anything that is just for us that the other one is not involved in comes out of that, comes out of our own money. And it's the same amount because it doesn't matter who makes more money because we live under the same roof. So same amount.
Yeah.
And I came back to him a couple months later and I asked, like, how's it going? Do you feel restricted? Do you feel like I'm controlling you? Because I was worried that he would. And he's like, no, I'm just making better choices. I was like, oh, wow, this is working even better than I thought it would. And so I said, tell me more. And he said, well, I saw a golf shirt that I wanted, but I didn't buy it because I knew if I spent the money on the shirt that I would have less money for the golf trip that I want to take coming up here in a couple of months. So I didn't buy the shirt. Keep in mind, he has a closet full of golf shirts. He does not need another one. But I asked him, do you feel bad that you don't have the shirt? And he said, no. I said, if I said right now that you could go back and get the shirt, would you go back and get the shirt? And he said, no. And I said, but if you didn't have this budget, this me money bucket of money, you would have bought the shirt. And he said, yes. And I said, and you would have gone on the trip. And he said, yes. So he acknowledged, he as the one who actually realized that he was making better decisions.
Yeah.
So fabulous. My plan is working. So flip it over to me. I have now my me money, but I was always the one who wouldn't go on the trip because I would feel guilty spending money on myself because I was the one watching the money. So anytime I had money and I spent it on myself, I felt like it should be going to saving or it should be going to retirement or something more responsible than on myself. So now that I had my me money set aside, I was able to buy things for myself that I wouldn't normally buy, right? I would tell myself before that I couldn't afford it. So I was giving myself permission. But in reality, I was still spending the same amount because I would justify spending $10 10 different times on something rather than just buying the one thing that I wanted for $100, right?
Okay. Yep.
So it gave us both something, and this is where it clicked with me, like the money personalities and how this system, the me money method, works with all the money personalities. It can work with any of them because it just gives intention and thought and a pause before you spend the money.
Yep. Yeah.
And
Makes
then if you're in, yeah, and if it
that.
goes even further, because if you're in a relationship with somebody, you don't have to have the conversation anymore about you spent money on what? Like, because whatever, it's my money and we have the same amount where we have a level playing field. Whatever I choose to spend it on, I choose. And whatever you choose, you choose. And it's the same amount. We're not, we don't have to like have judgment about each other and how much we're spending because it's all the same.
Yep. Sounds like it's a very, very good system, Linda, and I think a lot of people could gain a lot from implementing it into their lives.
Yeah.
You did mention something there in regards to the next question that I wanted to roll into around the feelings of guilt around spending. A lot of people feel guilty spending money even on things that they actually enjoy for themselves. How do people build a better, healthier relationship with spending without becoming reckless? Like um, what does intentional spending actually look like?
So it looks like having more thought to it, right? And when you give yourself permission so that you don't have the guilt, you think more about how that thing is going to work for you, right? So for instance, if I let's take my fingernails. I don't know, I'm just throwing this out there. But so let's say if I'm spending money getting my nails done, right? And I feel guilty about spending money getting my nails done. But when I realize like how that makes me feel because my fingernails are awful if I don't have them done, then it makes me feel a whole lot better and I show up better. I show up
Yep.
better in my personal life, in my work life, and to me, that makes a huge difference for me. But somebody else might look at that and be like, that is ridiculous. Like, I would never pay that money to get my nails done. And that's totally fine. But
Yep.
I'm doing that with intention, knowing that this is the difference it's making for me, not just because I'm doing it for, a status or something. Like, I'm doing it because of how it makes me feel and how it makes me show up. So I mean, you can see like most people don't put that much thought into why they're spending money on getting their nails done.
Definitely not, I don't think. I don't think most people put much thought into spending money full stop. They just spend it.
Right, right. Yeah, so I think another thing I want to mention is when we talk about like feeling guilty spending money and giving yourself permission to spending money, this actually it's mostly women that feel that way. Um and in like the accumulation phase or when we're saving. But when we get to the retirement phase, when we actually have to spend our money, that's where it becomes a lot more prominent because people are afraid of running out of money and they're
Yep.
afraid of getting through. And so this is where the me money method actually can be super beneficial as well, because then you have it as part of your plan for how you're going to spend your money in that, getting down the mountain of money phase in that decumulation or spending phase.
Yeah. Well said, mate. Well said. And it's something that I think we all should be working towards is setting ourselves up for retirement. And myself personally, I don't. particularly really want to out and out retire. I want to be doing something, and some form of work right and true until I park up stumps on my last day, But that's just me. Maybe not everybody's like that. A lot of people want to just pull up stumps and then just do nothing, and I can't think of anything worse myself. But
Yeah.
planning for that stage, I think there's a lot of design flaws around that myself in regards to planning for that retirement stage. People just think, okay, work, 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 save, save, save for retirement, get into retirement, and then just start spending down the money that you've built up for retirement. Like, why can't you still ultimately have not so much you working for your money, but have your money working for you, and which you're going to have to put a certain amount of effort and work towards. But why can't you still have your pot of money growing once you're in retirement, rather than just depleting it at the 3 or 4% that the so-called financial advisors and whatnot teach us, that is what you're aiming for when you get into retirement, that you just chew down the stockpile that you got, because, people are living longer, and, science is getting better all the time. And if you focus on your health, you can live to be a ripe old age. So I think it's very important for people to really look at that myself, and not just look at just spending down that mountain of money that you've built up. But that's just me personally.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the word retirement means different things for different people, just like you said. Like for you, retirement means that maybe you're not working in the coal mines anymore, and maybe that you're doing a fun job, right?
Yeah,
Something that isn't so hard on your body or whatever, like when you're older. And so I think when we think of retirement, sometimes we think full stop, like we're not working anymore. But I think more and more that's not real, right? I think more and more people are continuing to work and doing something, whether it be consulting or a side something that's like a side gig, like which it wouldn't be a side gig because there'd be nothing for it to be side for, but just smaller things or things that aren't as you're usually not making as much money, but it's also not as hard of work.
yeah, no, for sure, mate. Well said. Um, Running up on time, mate. I'd like to just punch through another couple of quick ones if we could, and
Yep.
provide a little bit more valuable insight for people today. If someone listening feels financially overwhelmed right now, Linda, what's one small thing they could do this week to start feeling more in control of their financial lives?
Uh, just pay attention to your cash flow. If you do nothing else, start understanding what's coming in and what's going out. So if that means you have an app that you look at, give yourself how often you're going to look at it. It could be once a week, it could be once a month. It doesn't have to be daily, but just really start getting a handle on where your money is actually going.
Awesome. Well said. I hope you're listening to that, listeners, because that's some really, really valuable little bit of insight right there. Linda, do most people actually have a money problem, do you believe, or do they really have a stress and shame and confidence problem more so around money than actually having a money problem? Like, I know some people obviously earn more than others, but what's your view and opinion on that throughout your time with your work, mate, and working with so many people with what you do?
There's not an easy answer to that, but I would say that it is a lot of money history, like stories that they're telling themselves, money mindset, emotions around money, their personality with money. A lot of that plays in. And it's like you said, some people are making more money than others, so shows up differently. But I think that everybody, it doesn't matter how much money you're making, everybody has some sort of financial stress. And a lot of times, I mean, there's no number that's going to be like, hey, I no longer have financial stress. Well, I shouldn't say that because, I've never been a billionaire, so I don't know if that would be a place or not.
Well, I
Maybe when you get to billionaire status, I'm not sure.
think it'd probably flip the coin myself. You'd end up on the other side of the coin of not worrying about it, not having enough. You'd be worried about having too much. And who's looking to come and take it off you? Myself, I think we've got to that level. That's just
Yeah.
my opinion.
Yeah. So anyway, I think that there's just so much to unpack as far as money shame and money emotion, and everybody is so unique. Really, if I would say somebody that's working on their, like, thinking of like their mindset about money, just start being very introspective and thinking about all of the ways that you feel about money when it's happening, right? When you pay your bills, how do you feel? When you pay different bills, how do you feel? When you get money, how do you feel? When you spend money, how do you feel? Because I think that that when you start to notice patterns, like if you, like a lot of people, we talk about like stress buying. So if you start to notice patterns in how you're feeling when you're doing things, then you can start to understand how you interact with money.
Beautiful. Love them words, mate. That's so true. I've been on that journey myself, and still trying to fully grasp my own money personality and how I interact with money. I interact with it a lot better today, with some education around it, more so than I once did previously. But it takes time, eh? It takes time and effort, and you have to you have to think intentionally, and it's, I guess, really comes down to awareness of yourself and awareness of your situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, big things. All right, Linda, it's been fabulous having you on here today, mate. It's been a really, really bloody wonderful conversation, and I hope your listeners, legends, have taken a lot away from what Linda Grizely has shared with us here today, and bring such a grounded and human perspective to money, around stress and confidence and the financial well-being. And that's so important. It's a lot of people, times we talk about, financial stability and financial security around money, but our financial well-being is equally as important, without a doubt. And I think what you bringing to people's understanding of that with the work that you do is just really, really fantastic, mate. Really fantastic. Keep up the good work. Um, can you share with my audience where they can find you today, Linda, and any other last words that you might like to share?
Oh, sure. They can find me on my website, which is lindagriz.com, LINDAGRIZ.com. And there is a money personality quiz that they can take on there to start understanding their money personality. And they could also find all my socials and anything else that however they want to connect there. And I would just say that there's one last thing I want to say. It's that you deserve to feel confident with money and good about how you spend it.
Awesome. Beautiful. Love them words, mate. Love them words. And I'll be sure to put all the links in the in below for the podcast, so the listeners can find you, mate. And hopefully you'll get a few Australian customers and clients coming your way, mate, because I think there's a lot to learn from the work that you're sharing with people, mate. It's very, very, very valuable. Very valuable for men and women alike, for sure. 100%. So if you like this today, folks, follow it, share it, hit the like button, share it with as many other people as you possibly can, and keep on building your financial wellness and your emotional understanding and your money personality. Get to know what your money personality is, And keep striving for truth, freedom, and legacy, Keep on stacking.
This has been another episode of The Rodney Bull Show, a Rebel Edge production. Please share with your family and friends, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review.